participants and guests of the International Conference, World Against Nuclear War. Emergency situation is developing in the world and demands our immediate attention. Armed conflicts do not cease. The Middle East is ablaze. The United Nations International Court has recognized Israel's action in Palestine as genocide of population. And by the end of the 2024, Israeli troops entered Syria. The conflict between Ukraine and Russia has involved 50 countries. The United States, Great Britain, France, Germany, all the leading world countries supply Ukraine with weapons of destruction. Therefore, the Third World War is underway. The NATO Parliamentary Assembly has adopted a resolution calling for the transfer of missiles with a range of up to 5,500 kilometers to Ukraine, which means that even Transbaikalia could be under attack. In response, Putin changed Russian nuclear doctrine and announced that Russia is ready to respond with nuclear missiles. In which case, neither the US nor Europe will remain silent and will obviously respond with nuclear attack. However, there will be no winners in nuclear war. Billions of people around the globe will suffer. If during the Cuban Missile Crisis the world leaders did their best to resolve the conflict, now on the contrary, every day we are being taught the idea that the use of nuclear weapons is inevitable. But we do not want to die in a nuclear conflict. We see clearly that neither United Nations nor any other international organization are taking action to resolve the conflicts. Only we ourselves, citizens of the whole world, can prevent it by openly expressing our protest.
Good day. I'm against the use of nuclear weapons. I say this because I work in a research institute where we dealt with civil defense. In particular, I calculated and analyzed human losses at different distances from the epicenter of nuclear explosion, and when various types of nuclear explosions were used. Therefore, I know firsthand about the troubles and sufferings of people, about those diseases, about human body disorders in the people that may follow a nuclear explosion. I was mainly engaged in calculations, but once I was at a nuclear explosion. Those experiments were carried out in scientific research. And in order to understand what threatens humanity after nuclear weapons is used, and how should we protect ourselves from nuclear weapons? So, I want to say, the consequences of a nuclear explosion are catastrophic. I will now tell you about the factors of damage from a nuclear explosion. People sometimes do not realize what is a nuclear weapon and what does it cause to a person, a country, and a nature. This is a really hard knowledge. It's good that people never saw it. There have been only 2 nuclear explosions throughout the entire history of human civilization, carried out by the USA on the territory of Japan in the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Then, 80,000 people died in the city of Hiroshima at one time. At one time! And I'm not talking about how many people died after the nuclear explosion. In Nagasaki, 60,000 people died instantly, although the bomb's charge was stronger. This happened only because the terrain served as protection, the height or sea proximity. What are the damaging factors of a nuclear explosion? There are physical, chemical, and biological effects. And the manifestation of these factors on the human body. The manifestation of the factors depends on the power of nuclear strike and nuclear strike type. What types of nuclear strikes exist? Air, ground, underground. With a ground nuclear explosion, about 50% of the power goes to shock wave formation. The shock wave here is similar to the shock wave of a non-nuclear explosion. It may just be stronger. 30 to 50% turns to light radiation. This is a huge temperature. Light radiation and huge temperature last from the fractions of a second to several seconds and act at a large distance. Up to 5% is penetrating radiation and electromagnetic radiation, and more than 10% is radioactive contamination of the area. With a explosion, the shock wave is much smaller, yet about 85% is penetrating radiation, neutron radiation, and gamma radiation. The shock wave destroys equipment, injures people. The closer a person is to the epicenter of the explosion, the less protection he has, the more damaging effects he will suffer. Light radiation affects unshielded areas, that is, areas not protected by anything. If a person is protected by something, then light radiation may not have a strong effect, but materials ignite. It's unclear how to protect a person. Glass breaks, materials melt that cannot melt. Indeed, light radiation is accompanied by huge temperature increase. Penetrating radiation has an ionizing and destructive effect on human tissue molecules. That is, irreversible consequences may occur. Radiation sickness may occur. The next factor is radioactive destruction. In the case of an air explosion, it is minimal. In the case of a ground explosion, this contamination covers huge areas. Light radiation is a flow of energy, and it's large. The fact is that the temperature that also occurs with light radiation causes terrible burns. Its transformation people into dust, smoke, ash. That is what it is. Therefore, a person must have protection. What can protect a person? We, city dwellers, have particularly nothing to protect us. Nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. They cannot be tested or deployed in open areas, in rural areas, or in battlefields. Usually, they use such weapons in places with large crowds of people. Those are large cities. Concepts of epidemiological and ecological situation are crucial for large cities when they are attacked with nuclear weapons. The fact is that panic begins after the use of nuclear weapons. Panic, inability to save yourself, inability to bury corpses, inability to use and beverages, inability to plant in this territory. To build and to live in this territory. Such area becomes uninhabitable. Psychological impact is another real important factor. When a person faces dying people, the corpses of loved ones and relatives, when he faces unburied corpses, when he experiences terrible pain, when he realizes that he is terminally ill and will die, When he faces the destruction of his familiar environment, when he realizes that he doesn't know what to do and nobody can save him, you can imagine what this person feels, what is this person's state. Many men who returned from the war couldn't come to their senses for a long time. They were unable to live in a family. This is a very difficult condition. And therefore, under no circumstances, the use of nuclear weapons may be allowed. But has affected their descendants to this day. 70 years ago, mass exercises with their use of an atomic bomb were held at the Tosk test site in the Orenburg region.